Before we conclude, there is some time. You're free to ask questions to any of the four people who are here. We have the microphones. We request you to identify yourself before you speak. We request you to keep your comments brief, your questions pointed.
My question is to Karuna. One of the things I noticed about one is the criminal case, I think, which we all
That is Mr. Maheshwar Perry speaking.
Yes.
Yes.
So I think one is the criminal case which you need to ensure that we all need to ensure that it's not used or rather abused by all these people. But more importantly, even the slap is also about the quantum of civil defamation case that you get into, which is hundreds of crores. Like when Arindam filed a case against me, he of course filed criminal case all over the country. 14 cases is what he filed. But one of them was a 100 crore case in Guwahati because the fee there is 1 rupee. And which is where the question comes in. When you talk about civil defamation case, that can also lead to chilling effect because, in Delhi, if he files it, he's going to, have a 50 lakh, 1 crore as the stamp duty, if you will. So he chooses, a lot of people say why he chooses Northeast. It's not that he's in love with Northeast. Of course, it's easy to get into the Northeast courts and get onto the whole thing. But the slap defamations there are very, very cheap. It's 100 rupees, 1,000 rupees, and he files a 100 court case against me and Google put together. So how do you actually, as lawyers, ensure that a civil defamation case also has a similar stamp duty, so that the chilling effect that people need to pay for what they believe in, right? And if that were to be the case, and he can afford it, then he better pay for the 100 crore in terms of the stamp duty. How do you deal with that?
Well, I think that's an excellent point. And in terms of jurisdiction, there's a lot of forum shopping that happens in defamation cases because unlike other cases, you don't have to go to where the defendant is domiciled, whether it's a company, whether it's an individual, whoever. You can just go to any place, say the website or the magazine is available. So jurisdiction as an issue is, I'm pretty sure, going to be dealt with by Justice Deepak Mishra's judgment in the criminal case, which will also then impact the civil cases. So let's see what happens with that. Yeah.
It's also Kolkata, which has a flat fee. Yes, please.
But I think if we do have a massive constitutional appeal on this, right? As I was saying, Rajagopal only addresses aspects of it. Then clearly this is an issue that we must have front and center.
Okay, I think what Maheshwar is saying, if we have
you'd still bench up.
Okay, Sunita, you wanted to add something to this?
My understanding is Mumbai is particularly very, very corporate friendly, is what everybody tells me is why cases are filed particularly in Mumbai. All the food cases against food safety standards have always been filed in Mumbai because all the judges are very corporate friendly. So that's also partly.
All right.
Same stamp duty, you'll have to make sure same kind of judges also.
All right. Okay, Mr. Javed Laik, senior journalist, he wanted to say something.
I just want to make a brief comment. It's not just corporates who launch these troublesome suits. It's very often powerful individuals or, with apologies to lawyers, small-time advocates in some streets in town all over can launch a series of suits and make editors and journalists fly all over or take trains to all sorts of places to, which is just a form of harassment. And very often it can be also powerful individuals or members of powerful organizations like the Sangh Parivar who can cause tremendous damage. I know this for a fact, as for 17 years to fight a criminal defamation case by a gentleman called Mr. Jagmohan on Turkman Gate, and just went on and on for 17 years. So what I'm trying to say is not just corporates, but can be powerful individuals and small-time advocates who can cause a lot of nuisance.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Javed Laik. Any of you would like to react to what he's saying? Okay. Okay, we have two more hands over there. We have Mr. Bohidar. We have
Thank you.
Mr. Dadeja.
I run Natranjan Bohidar. try to run a modest initiative that I call democracy within a continuum. But having listened to Sunita, I think we should be talking about legality in a continuum. It just goes on and on and on. So Paranjoy, did you miss out the fact that she is the most influential, one of the most 100 influential voices in the world by Time magazine?
All right.
We forgot to mention that. So I think she deserves, yeah, and I think she deserves that because of the way she actually shaken us up this evening. And I'd like to go to Dilip for this. Dilip, what is this tactic about corporations targeting individuals? I didn't understand this. I mean, why should that happen, and why shouldn't ICMR take it up in that particular case, or why shouldn't journalists who belong to corporations themselves? And we know a lot of these media corporations having a little bang with the, other corporations. There's a bit of marital rape, it happens at the top level. We all enjoy watching it. So why should the individual be targeted? Sunita's made the point, I'm not quite sure. Karuna, any idea on why the legalities actually allow this? Why shouldn't the corporation take this up? Why the individual? And have you ever done it? I don't think so, Dilip. I mean, how does it go?
The individual who's easier to target.
No, but there should be a law which says that individual wrote this piece or said so under the cover of the umbrella of a corporation or an organization or a...
You could stretch the argument to that, but I doubt that that would work because especially today, most writing has moved out of institutional framework. In fact, I think the need for change in this way of looking at it is even more fundamental today because large corporations who own media are unlikely to be carrying most of the cutting edge stuff. And today corporations also recognize that the most severe damage doesn't come from an institutional publisher, but actually from a gritty individual who has the, shall I say, the ability to stick to the course of actually investigating. Many large corporations, many large media corporations have given up that luxury, sadly.
So the messenger, Paranjoy, as you define it here, is an individual. I mean, an individual activist who's actually taking on a large corporation, this David Goliath thing.
Boydar, I'll make a brief intervention, The organization, the company that brings out the world's most widely circulated English daily newspaper, decided to serve this legal notice on a 22-year-old law student from Kolkata. And yours truly. But not the editor, printer, publisher of the newspaper that published the article.
Exactly my point.
About a 19-year-old legal battle with the Financial Times of the United Kingdom. So, I mean, this just highlights the point. I mean, the vulnerability. This is the point that's been made over and over again by the speakers.
But just to add something, I mean, I think he's also asking why is this allowed by the law?
Absolutely.
And the reason is that doctrinally, you have to be able to, well, in theory, there's the publisher, there's say the newspaper, there's the intermediary, if you will, and then there's the individual writer or journalist. And in theory, who is responsible and what damages are allocated gets divided on whose negligence it was, right? But the reason that we're saying that the little person gets targeted is because if, in the case that Paranjoy is talking about, the Financial Times and BCCL case, there was a wide variety of people they could have sued. Who did they pick? The 22-year-old law student. Paranjoy, who doesn't have a big organization behind him, And all of these are sort of messages that go out, Here's an easy person to take down, all of the rest of you will come after you because this person is easy to take down.
But the law allows that.
Let a few other people also speak. I mean, this is really what
this can go on,
Okay. There was Mr. Dudeja over here, and there is
Paranjoy.
2 or 3 all known people. Yes, please. Neil. We'll get all your questions in. Yes.
Karuna, I would like to appreciate your dad, the way he ethics and morally about doctors, the way he's coming out with so many reports. And recently there was a doctor organized in Faridabad. They are doing the infanticides, then the ultrasound and all this thing. And because of that, one lady committed suicide, journalist lady, Pooja Tiwari. So how to deal this type of doctors which are very educated, highly, and they go for MD for 2 crore rupees. So this is also a very big issue.
I will ask my dad to answer your question.
Okay, all right. Neil Chatterjee.
My name is Neil Chatterjee. I started my career in advertising, so yes, what you said, Dilip works for advertising. But more importantly, pre-liberalization, I was the corporate affairs head for Pepsi. Nothing to do with pollution and others. The SLAP legislation, it was not there in 1990, or it was not known. Therefore, my question to Ms. Nandi is, are all SLAP suits against evil in corporations or from evil corporations and are not justified? And I'll give you an example in the context of what I've been through. There was a large publication. There was a not so large as Pepsi competitor. And the nexus between the publication, the competitor, and a certain minister at that time in 1990 created a situation for Pepsi which would be very slappable. But unfortunately, legislation wasn't there. So what I'm trying to say is, are there SLAP suits which the corporation is justified in bringing?
Okay.
You know, firstly, I think you make an excellent point, and we don't just want to have a discussion amongst the converted, right? I think it's very important whenever we speak of free speech, whenever we speak of privacy, these are not absolute rights. These are rights that are to be balanced. Now, the thing is that in terms of, you know, when you say that there is SLAP legislation, there isn't. It doesn't exist. There is, though, because we are a common law country, which means that judges also make law, we have an emerging series of judgments on that, which is where the law comes from. In terms of a corporation's right to civil damages, the fact that it's a SLAP means that it's a problem, right? So it's not legitimate because it's a strategic lawsuit against public participation. If it is limited and reasonable in nature, if they can show that the person acted with actual malice or reckless disregard, right, in what they published, without the breathing space that is in fact under the law given to activists and journalists and others, if they can show that in fact there was damage, and the burden is on the corporation in this regard, right? If they can show that, if they can, you know, establish all these steps, then perhaps in these particular circumstances, and let's be clear that any lawsuit has to go through a number of legal hoops before it's maintainable or successful, then perhaps it would not be a SLAP. Then perhaps it would be a legitimate suit for. But you know, I would hope actually that the company would not have to go that far. I would hope that actually what would happen is that they would go to a industry, like to a media body that is regulating itself, and say that, look, you know, what's happened is really unfair. It's damaging my reputation, etc. And the media body says that, okay, so there's a variety of things you can do, right? That you can say that, okay, I was right to this extent, but I was wrong to that extent. Publish it in a place of equal prominence. You can say that, okay, here is your view. I didn't ask for your view adequately. Here is the space that you get to put out your side of the story. There's a number of remedies that I hope that the courts and self-regulatory mechanisms will give. And massive damages, in my experience, tend to be to shut the person up.
Okay, Sunita, you wanted to add something to this?
I think reinforce what Karuna is saying. I think the fact is, when SLAP was framed, it was framed in the US context, where it was exactly what it was. It was being used to silence. It was being used to intimidate. It was not being used to just say, you have harmed me, I'm going to take you to court. That's a different thing. Everybody has the right to do that. SLAP is used not to just do that. SLAP is used deliberately to say, I'm going to make sure that I silence you and your entire community. And I think that's what the difference is.
Okay.
Thank you very much, ladies.
We have a few more questions, so I'm going to do something because we are running out of time. I'm going to get all the people who want questions to speak, and then I'm going to get my panelists here to make their comments and answer all your questions. Friends, we have Krishan here. I should have mentioned his name. He was the author of the article on SR which attracted a suit. Okay, Mr. Rajiv Kakria, Subir Chaturvedi, Murli Krishnan, Chandrabhushan. These are the 4 people. We'll request all 4 of them to speak, and then we'll get the panel to give their closing remarks. Have I left somebody out? Oh, okay, 1 or 2 more people. Please, please, please.
Thank you, Paranjoy. And I really want to thank you and Subir for putting this together. It's a fascinating conversation, very, very timely. Paranjoy, my question is first to you. So there's the chilling effect that we all know. There's also pre-censorship that institutions and fellow journalists are doing. When you were doing the book, the first one, and even during this one, what kind of support did you see amongst your own fraternity? We've seen a crisis of editorial leadership, and also your persistence is what I especially want to give a shout out to both you and Subir. Is self-publishing then the way to go forward? And then how do you see social media playing a role?
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll answer your question. Is one of the ways forward. Yes, large sections of the media pretended that gas wars hadn't been published. Yes, only one major newspaper reviewed it. It was, of course, fairly widely discussed and reviewed on various internet websites. So yes, I mean, it is a fact that most major organizations depend on large corporations for advertising income, and therefore they don't want to jeopardize it. When we had a big meeting at the Bombay Press Club, it was house full but very little reportage. So we've discussed some of these in the 2nd edition of the book, and there's also some of that here in this book. So yes, we've discussed this earlier. There is the media and there is the media. There is journalists and there are journalists. There are all kinds of journalists. There are also criminals, some of them among them. Dogs that bark but cannot bite. Lap dogs, watch dogs, guide dogs, all kinds of them. Okay, so we'll have that conversation. Mr. Rajiv Kakria, he's a advertising profession and also a social activist on matters pertaining to electricity.
And much more. Yeah.
And much more. Yes, sir.
What I'm really talking about is in the form of a suggestion. You've done the book. I think there is, comfort in numbers. So start a sued club.
Okay, sir.
What happens is when we hear that Sunita has been targeted, you've been targeted, you could share your experiences much more. If you were to set it up, we could come here, we could all get together. When people get in, there are many, many people, and more sold people, they'll have more passion because they'll have more empathy. So please, more support. So I think
Thank you.
this is form of a suggestion.
Thank you.
Start a student club.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Excellent suggestion. Okay.
Hi, I'm Paranjoy. I'm from the law school you mentioned, National School Calcutta. And I also read the extract of the book that got published in The Wire, and it was really nice. My question is that does suing the messenger necessarily dilute the message that's coming out? Because despite cross-media ownership in this country, there still is enough diversity amongst media groups that will allow the message to come out. I mean, if Caravan can publish the nonsense that Vedanta did in terms of funding Naxalites, I mean, isn't there enough scope in this country, isn't there enough diversity amongst media organizations to not dilute the message? Thanks.
No,
please.
If it's a question of whether the message is coming out or not, well, the message has already come out. The message has already come out. The point is whether it has a chilling, whether a slap suit has a chilling effect on others or not. In many cases they do, in some cases they don't. In the case of in the case of IIPM, I mean, there was a lot of hangama on social media. I mean, he just simply couldn't handle it at the end of it. That's what I believe. But in other cases, yeah, there are lots of people who fall silent. I would just also respond to Subir's question in this regard. And it was a fact that lots of our colleagues, our so-called friends, didn't really stand by us. All that they would do a few months down the line is ask, hi, how are you? What happened to your case? And with a very very discernible smirk on their face, wanting to know, oh, when are you going to jail? No, it's a fact. It's a fact. I mean, how can I deny that? You could see that smirk on their face. I mean, it's a fact. I can't deny it.
All right.